Welcome back to Eurofootball Daily, and today we've got another top 10 for you where we're looking at 10 captains that jumped ship. But before we start, make sure you've hit the subscribe button and the bell next to it so you're notified on every single video and you don't miss a single one. And without further ado, let's get on with it. 10. Mats Hummels. Mats Hummels was not the first Dortmund player to make his way to Bayern, but his departure was arguably the most damaging. The defender came through the Bavarians' academy, but it was BVB who gave him his professional break, acquiring him on loan in 2008 before making the move permanent in 2009. He cost them just €4 million. Partnering Subotic, Hummels helped Dortmund to back-to-back titles in 2011 and 2012, missing just 3 games in 2 years. In that time, the Schwarzgelben conceded only 47 goals in 68 games, and in 2013, they reached a Champions League final, losing to Bayern Munich. Hummels was made captain a year later, but Bayern followed up their treble with moves to Goetze and Lewandowski, while the Westfalenstadion outfit failed to get past the UCL quarters in the next 3 campaigns. Hummels decided that moving to Bayern was his best shot at winning the Champions League, and after running down his contract until he had 1 year left, he submitted a request to switch to the Allianz. Dortmund were forced to agree a €35 million fee with their rivals, but they got the last laugh, as Hummels' only visit to the UCL final is still the one he made in the yellow shirt. 9. Thiago Silva. At number 9, we're already cheating. Thiago Silva was never Milan's permanent captain, unsurprising given that he shared his time at the San Siro with legends like Gattuso and Ambrosini. The Brazilian was 25 by the time he arrived in Italy, but quickly established himself as a dominant defender, winning Serie A in his 2nd year. Silva was also included in Serie A's Team of the Year in 2 out of his 3 seasons with Milan, and even deputised in midfield, earning comparisons to Frank Rijkaard, Franco Baresi and Marcel Desailly. He was labelled the best centre-back in the world by Ibrahimovic and Inzaghi, and in November 2011 he captained the club against Chievo, becoming the first foreign skipper of Milan in 50 years. Unfortunately, injury ruled him out for 2 months in the spring, during which time Juventus established a stranglehold on the league. Milan finished 2nd, and in the summer PSG sporting director Leonardo, who had brought Silva to Italy 3 years earlier, made a big play for the centre-half. Financial difficulties meant Milan had to consider the sale, but they played hardball, extending Silva's contract until 2017, before allowing him to leave just 12 days later, along with Ibrahimovic. Silva eventually earned them €42 million, the highest fee ever for a centre-back, and has since won 5 titles in France. 8. William Gallas. Arsenal's ability to make the wrong decisions is almost unparalleled at the top level, and making William Gallas captain in 2007 was one of their most spectacular self-owns. The Frenchman succeeded Thierry Henry after a single season with the Gunners, and was handed the armband ahead of Gilberto Silva, but by February, on his first year as skipper, he came under fire, confronting the fans during a 2-2 draw with Birmingham before sitting down on the pitch dejectedly at the end of the game. He was allowed to retain his role, but 9 months later the defender gave an interview in which he criticised the atmosphere in the dressing room, as well as the team's younger players. Arsene Wenger dropped him and fined him 2 weeks' wages, before finally taking the captaincy away in favour of Cesc Fabregas. Despite the club arguably treating him more patiently than he deserved, Gallas demanded a new contract, asking for a 2-year £80k a week deal at the age of 33. This time Arsenal said no, and the centre-back was allowed to leave on a free transfer, moving to arch-rivals Tottenham and becoming the first player to represent Spurs, Arsenal and Chelsea. 7. Massimo Maccarone. Italian striker Massimo Maccarone, aka Big Mac, is probably best known for his 5 years at Middlesbrough in the mid-2000s, where he won the League Cup and reached the Europa League final, losing out to Sevilla. Despite playing up front, Maccarone has only reached double figures in a top-flight campaign 4 times in his career. 2 of those times came at Empoli between 2014 and 2016, after Maccarone turned 36. The forward rejoined the Florentine outfit, who had played for in the early 2000s in 2011, and helped them out of Serie B under manager Maurizio Sarri, before netting 10 to keep them in Serie A. He got 13 the next year and won admirers for his rebellious streak, once celebrating a goal by running over to the crowd and downing a fan's beer. However, Empoli's 3rd year back in the big time culminated in 12 losses from their last 17 games, including a final day defeat to already relegated Palermo, to send them back to the 2nd tier. Maccarone had scored just 5 goals all season, and he refused to speak to the press after the Palermo match, making him a target for angry fans. In the end, he released a statement saying that he took responsibility for the terrible campaign, and he showed his commitment by leaving for Australia and the Brisbane Roar 2 months later. 6. Adam Lallana. A Southampton trainee, Adam Lallana joined the Saints at 12 and was instrumental in returning the club to the top table of English football. A championship side when 18-year-old Lallana made his debut, Southampton were relegated in 2009, but won successive promotions in 2011 and 2012, reaching the Premier League for the first time in 7 years. In the space of 4 campaigns, Lallana was named in the League One, Championship and Premier League Team of the Seasons, and went from playing against Tranmere and Gillingham in the 3rd tier to being signed as a model for French connection, as well as going to the 2014 World Cup. His 9 goals and 5 assists from midfield attracted Liverpool, and the Reds paid £25 million to take the then 26-year-old to Anfield, ending a 14-year association between Lallana and Southampton. The Englishman has gone on to become a more offensive player, at times knitting together a disjointed Liverpool attack, and he's also earned 34 caps for his country, the same number as Michael Carrick and more than Robbie Fowler. 5. Gary Speed. With 535 appearances in the Premier League, just 4 men can claim to have played as many games in the division as Gary Speed. The Welshman joined Leeds as a 15-year-old and went on to feature over 300 times with the Peacocks, winning the title in 1992, before signing to Everton, the club he had supported as a boy, for £3.5 million. In his first year at Goodison, Speed scored 11 goals from midfield and was voted the club's player of the season, so it was no surprise then incoming manager Howard Kendall named the 28-year-old captain. However, the 2 men fell out less than 6 months later, and Speed joined Newcastle in February 1998, after barely a year and a half on Merseyside. Kendall claimed that the Toon manager Kenny Dalglish had tapped up the star, but rumours circulated that Speed had been covering for the coach's drinking problem and had finally had enough. Sadly, he committed suicide in 2011 at the age of 42 and is sorely missed to this day. 4. Carlo Ancelotti. Amazingly, Carlo Ancelotti captained Roma for 3 years in the 1980s, when the club's manager was Sven-Göran Eriksson. A versatile player who could feature on the wing or in central midfield, Carlito arrived in the capital as a 20-year-old from Parma and would go on to make over 200 appearances for the club. He won 4 Coppa Italias in 8 years with his giallorossi, reached the 1984 European Cup final where the Romans lost out to Liverpool and won the Scudetto, at that point just the 2nd title in the club's history. But the late 80s saw Milan return to dominance in Serie A, and coach Arrigo Sacchi tempted the giallorossi captain into a switch. Ancelotti swapped red and yellow for red and black, joining up with Maldini, Baresi, Hullet and Van Basten. He won the league again in his maiden campaign with the Rossoneri, lifted back-to-back European Cups, and in the 1991-92 season, his final one as a pro, Milan went unbeaten in Serie A. Carlo would go on to coach the side to another Scudetto and 2 Champions Leagues, while Roma, who had finished in the top 3 5 times in 8 years with Ancelotti, managed it just once over the following 13 seasons. However, the abandonment seems to have been forgotten, with the Italian since inducted into both clubs' Hall of Fames. 3. Robin van Persie. The Arsenal captaincy has become a poisoned chalice since the turn of the century. When the Gunners sold Thomas Vermaelen to Barcelona in 2014, the Belgian was the 5th Gunners skipper to be transferred in 9 years, with Vieira, Henry, Fabregas and Robin van Persie all preceding him. Vieira and Henry were both about to turn 30 when they left the club, while Fabregas returned to his hometown with Barcelona, but Van Persie's exit felt like treason. The Dutchman joined Arsenal as a 21-year-old, and Arsene Wenger stuck with him through 8 injury-hit years. But in the last 2, loyalty began to reap its rewards, as Van Persie scored 18 in the 2010-11 campaign before hitting 30 league goals the next year, winning the PFA Player of the Year award. Unfortunately, the forward only had a year left on his deal, and he released a public statement saying he was unwilling to stay at the club, which lacked ambition in the transfer market. Man United and Man City engaged in a tug of war, and Arsenal ended up selling Van Persie to rivals United for just €25 million, only to see him score 26 and win Alex Ferguson a 13th title. 2. Chris Samba. Congolese giant Chris Samba played in France and Germany before joining Blackburn in 2007. Then 23, Samba impressed with his speed and anticipation, and over his first 2 full seasons at Ewood Park, he missed just 8 games. Blackburn managed to finish 7th in his debut term, and Samba became the first name on the team sheet for manager Sam Allardyce, even appearing up front for the Riversiders during their regular injury crisis. Unfortunately for club and centre-back, Allardyce fell out with Blackburn's owners in December 2010 and was sacked, despite the team safely securing 13th in the division. 13 days later, Samba told then coach Steve Keane that he wanted to leave the club, and the defender was stripped of captaincy just 6 months after being given the armband. Eventually, a wage bump convinced him to sign a new deal, and he was made skipper again, as Blackburn came in 15th, but Keane's reign was to turn catastrophic. Blackburn lost 11 of their 19 games over the first half of 2011-12, allowing 3 goals or more on 7 occasions, and once again, Samba had had enough. He resubmitted his transfer request, and though Rovers claimed they would ignore his wishes, he was sold in February to Russian outfit Anzhi Makashkala. Blackburn got relegated, as did Samba a year later when he returned to England with QPR. 1. Sol Campbell. Our final trip to Arsenal, it has to be because we're at number 1. It's for Judas himself, Sol Campbell. The giant defender became a Tottenham regular at 18 and was made skipper in 1997 at the age of 23. Spurs were a mid-table side at that time, finishing 14th in Campbell's maiden season as captain, but he did become the first black captain to win a trophy at Wembley, when Spurs lifted the League Cup in 1999. Campbell wasn't inclined to fritter away his career at a club going nowhere, and ran down his contract, becoming a free agent in the summer of 2001. However, Spurs were determined to keep him, and offered a deal which would have made him their best paid player ever, while the centre-half himself repeatedly told the press that he would stay at White Hart Lane. But you guys know what happened next. Though he could have joined Chelsea or even Barcelona, Campbell went to Arsenal. Having made the team of the year once at Spurs, he was included another 2 times under Wenger, winning the double in his first season before becoming invincible in 2004. Strangely, he actually made around 100 more appearances for Tottenham than he did for their rivals, but he'll always be remembered for his betrayal. So those were our 10 captains that have jumped ship. Have I missed any out? And what did you guys think of the ones that we mentioned? Let me know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this, want to check out Football Mundial with me and Michael McCubbin, and make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit that little bell to be notified on every EFD video. And have a good night. See you later.